Another type of change you can make using configurations is to define how your domain classes map to the database. This is especially useful with an existing database. You can change simple mappings like the name of a table or a column, or you can even specify things like timestamp columns. For more complex mappings, you can define inheritance or split entities across multiple tables. I've reverted the blog class back to use the data annotation so we can continue working with those. Even though I let Code First create this database for me, let's say it pre-existed, and when creating my classes, I don't really care that the primary key in the database is so badly named. I can still use ID for the property name in the class. The way I'm able to do that is with a mapping annotation. So let's go ahead and fix this up a little bit. First of all, I'm going to call this ID again because that's the way I want my class to be named. One of the important points of using Code First is so that I can have my classes the way I want them, and I don't have to follow Entity Framework's expectations. So now that this is named ID, I no longer need the key attribute. However, since I need this property to map to the database field that's called random key, what I can do is use the column data annotation and specify that this maps to random key. So now everything will sync up properly. Now, I probably wouldn't do this if I was asking Entity Framework to create the database for me. I could just have it create the field named ID in the database. But if it was already named random key, then I can use this attribute. There are other things you can do with a column annotation besides specify a different column name in the database. You can also do the same thing with a class name. With this class name blog, Code First assumes the table name will be the plural of that, blogs. Maybe the database table name was already named something completely different, like feeds. I could use the table attribute and then specify the name of the table in the database. I won't bother doing that here, though. There are quite a few mapping annotations you can use. Another interesting one is for scenarios where you want to take advantage of Entity Framework's concurrency support. I might want to have a timestamp column. This works if the property is a byte array, and I'll call it row version. It's a more commonly used name. As it is, Code First would just create a var binary field in the database to represent this row version. But if I add in a timestamp annotation, it will treat it much differently. I'll run the application again, and then we'll take a look at the database to see what it created. So here's the blogs table again, and notice there's the row version field, and its type is timestamp, not a var binary field, so the database will completely understand how to deal with that now, and also it's not nullable. There's another effect that the timestamp annotation has on the model that's created, which is that Entity Framework understands that the database will generate the value, and so it will deal with that accordingly. These are some of the simpler mappings that you can use in Code First. There are also some much more interesting ones, such as the ability to specify how inheritance hierarchies are set up in the database, or you can have a single class that maps to multiple tables, or you can have multiple classes that map to a single table. All of the things that I've shown you here, you can do with Fluent API also, but some of the more complex configuration mappings can only be done with a Fluent API.